Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Oh, what up? I know, right? Wrong button, off to a bad start. What up, world? It is Sunday night once again. Do you know where your POGs are? Of course you do. We are right here, and we are live and in full effect on the first official football Sunday of the fall. It's your boy KJ Bradley and the greatest chaplain in the world, Chaplain Lance O'Neill, wearing his Dallas Cowboys shirt, who had a victorious win over the Cleveland Browns. Absolutely dog walked them today in the dog pound. I wish I could say the same about my Falcons, but life goes on. Say la vie, man. What up, Chappie?
I wish I could throw a football and make $60 million a year without winning a single playoff game for my team.
Listen,
that's
man,
what's going on.
That was a surprising contract, but I mean, I get it. Franchise quarterbacks are hard to come by.
I don't blame him. I personally, if I was Jerry Jones, I probably would have waited till the end of the season to see how the playoff run went. Because if there's another flame out, you've got to start thinking: is this guy just a regular season quarterback, and he just can't win? You have to start thinking.
Yeah, we gave old Kurt McGirt. We gave him 180 mil, and starting to get a little buyer's remorse already. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's
one game,
first game, and looked a little rusty. Hopefully, we'll be able to work the kinks out, man. I saw some. Our defense looks as advertised, so I saw some pluses. You know, I'm not gonna hit the panic button yet.
Well, I think the most amazing score was the Bears being down 17-0 to who were they? Was it India? No, it wasn't the Colts. Who were they down to?
Tennessee.
Yeah, they're down 17-0 to Tennessee. Come back and win 24-17 and add 148 yards of total offense. Now, your friend and mine, Greg Easterbrook, and he sent this out on Saturday. He does those things where he looks for college football teams that gain 600 plus yards and lose.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was Arkansas was over 600 yards against Tennessee and lost.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But on the other side, that was mine. I tweeted that to him and said, hey, I think the other side of this is the Bears winning, being under 150 yards of offense. And not only winning, putting up 24 points.
Yeah, man.
And coming back from 17-0 down. I mean, if you're Tennessee, I mean, I get it. He's a second-year quarterback. But Levin, you're not real happy with that performance. And you're probably also not real happy with what your running back did a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
When you let Derrick Henry leave. So that guy just kind of like the Giants have to be kind of wondering why they let Barkley go.
I'm wondering if they're second guessing that decision, man.
It's tough because running backs are kind of a dime a dozen. I didn't even see. I watched I barely watched any of the Cowboys. It's the day started off going to church and everything, and then coming home, and I was trying to watch Red Zone, and I couldn't get it to load. I was like, I'll pay for the dumb thing. Just let me watch it. It took me about 20 minutes. And then by the time the Cowboys came on, I don't remember what I was doing. Oh, we went and strangely, we test drove a car. But yeah, so I saw the score and it's like 20-3. I think I saw 4 plays of the Cowboys game.
Yeah.
I'm real happy with the score, but it's game 1. I mean, you're going to have the teams that freak out because they've lost one game. Atlanta, something for Atlanta.
We're used to it.
Well,
not panicking.
Yeah, but I mean, talk about the ultimate bend don't break defense is they forced 6 field goals.
Yeah, man. Our defense is legit. That's one thing we're not worried about. We invested wisely in our defense, and I think we are finally at a point to where we're confident enough to let it rock, right? So I think we'll be okay defensively. I'm just
The
a little
thing,
nervous.
the thing I don't get about the NFL and college to a lesser degree because that's recruiting. But if you look at San Francisco and the Niners and you say, why are they as good as they are? Like if you can kind of break that, it's not because of Purdy, it's not because of the running back, it's not because of the wide receivers, it's the offensive line. And if you can take that money instead of Dak Prescott getting $60 million, let's say he was making $2 million like Purdy did, and you could increase your offensive lineman by a $10 million per position player, what does it do? And so
Yeah,
you look at, like I look at Atlanta and go, there's no reason they shouldn't be good. They have a great running back,
yeah,
1-2 running back. They've got good receivers. The tight end Pitts had a really solid game.
yeah.
Kirk Cousins is kind of the ultimate fantasy football guy. You draft him in like the 11th or 12th round, and he always puts up really solid stats for you. Win or lose, he's going to get you about 225 and a couple touchdown passes. Not
I think
today.
we'll be fine. We ran up against this buzzsaw called TJ Watt. I don't know too much about him, but I heard that family they end up producing pretty good edge rushes. So
Yeah,
they, yeah, they
genetics.
yeah.
Genetics are a wonderful thing.
It's something in the water up there with those kids, man. That White family, they broke the genetic code when it come to edge rushes. They figured it out.
They really. You got to kind of wonder. Like you look at the Mannings,
Mm,
and you say, well, they had two, Super Bowl winning Pro Bowl quarterbacks. You have, one of them, Peyton, with the
yeah,
biggest forehead in football,
yeah.
and then you have his brother who has Down syndrome who won 2 Super Bowl titles. I got mail.
Let Peyton tell it. Yeah.
And no, I've made that joke about Eli for seriously 10 years.
Really?
Hey, I threw the touchdown!
Listen,
Yay!
man. Arch
And
is
that's
gonna be
nothing.
a
Look,
monster.
that's nothing against people that are mentally challenged. Okay, I've got friends that have kids that are mentally challenged. They're great. Um, I'm making fun of Eli himself, not of anybody else there.
No, I'm excited, man. I think Arch is gonna be a monster when he comes out. Like I said, it's just some families they crack the code, man. I don't know.
But Archie hasn't even won the starting job at Texas.
He
He's
doesn't have
still
to.
second stringer.
He doesn't have to genetically. That boy. I mean, if what's his name? I can't even pronounce the kid's name. But Ewing, I can't pronounce his name.
Yours, I think, something like that.
Yours. Yeah, that boy is balling, man. That kid is, jeez, that kid
Yeah.
is phenomenal, man. You got to be a special talent to keep Manning off the field, man. And he is rising to the challenge, man. Texas is a tough team. I was looking at we play him, I think October. I think we got him either October 12th, October 19th, in Austin. That's gonna be a hell of a game, man. Georgia better tighten up their chin straps for that one. That's gonna be one hell of a game.
Yeah.
Either way, man.
Well, the SEC though, yeah.
Hmm?
I want to before we do that. You know how Bill Maher does his new rules on every show. I want
I
to
haven't
propose a
seen a
new
Bill
rule.
Maher episode in like 6 years, man.
I don't watch it. I see the if something goes viral, I see it as well, right? But he
Mm.
does this thing, I guess, where it's new rules, and he talks about new rules, that made up rules, right?
Is that me?
Not me.
Let me see.
Who's calling in? Who do you think this is?
Let me see.
Es un spy. It's not me. I don't think. Is it?
No, that's my brother trying to call in.
Oh, why isn't he watching the show?
It's
Okay,
almost like it's almost like he doesn't realize I do this every week. After I tell him
so
incessant, I do this every
so
week.
here's your clip for TikTok. So mark it at the 8:39, right? Okay. To steal from Bill Maher, the new rules.
Mhm.
College football preseason polls. Okay, fine. If you're going to have them, have them. But if a team comes out of a game with a better record than the team they beat that is ranked, that team automatically moves into that position for the first 4 weeks. So
Take it over.
Northern Illinois University should absolutely be ranked number 5 this week after beating Notre Dame. And for the first 4 weeks, if you lose, you should be ranked below every single team that is undefeated. So for the first 4 weeks. So if you first 4 weeks you have Liberty, and for some weird reason, every single team has a loss except Liberty.
Hold on,
Liberty is ranked number one.
hold on a sec. Lance, you're gonna have to carry the show, man. Let me see this. This may be an emergency because he's calling twice. Hold on.
Oh, okay. So that is what I would say. And just he's muting. Oh, he's going off all the way. So that would be my argument, because you have these teams. Well, first of all, why we have polls for the first 4 weeks is kind of ridiculous. I see the computer polls, and how do you know how good a team is? You can say, well, at this position, that position, and the other position, but the problem is, it's not. Games aren't done by recruiting. How many teams have we seen that on paper look great? Let's look at Michigan. Michigan, on paper, should be really good, right? But they just got absolutely smoked by Texas. Nobody's saying Texas shouldn't have beaten them, but there's a level of it should have been closer. But NIU, is anybody going to say Northern Illinois out recruited Notre Dame this year? And that's why I think with the computer stuff, if they're going off of recruiting and potential players, that's why we should really get rid of the polls for the first 4 weeks. You don't have enough information. And when you're talking about data driven and you're talking about eye test, okay. So now you have a team like Oregon who played Boise State, and they were tied 34-34 right at the end of the fourth quarter. I don't know if it was if the field goal to win went through at the the clock at 0, but I know it was late in the fourth quarter. So they moved up with nothing. Boise State, for Boise State to hang with them 34-34 going in the fourth quarter, yeah, it's a win, sure. Okay, so Boise State won, but should Oregon really be moving up after winning by 3 against Boise State? Should Notre Dame still be in the top 25 after losing to an unranked NIU? So NIU goes to 2-0. Notre Dame should drop out of the top 25. NIU should be number 5. Now, the ranked teams, okay, I still think Michigan losing to Texas, Michigan should be out of the top 25. I don't care if it's another ranked team. They lost, and so they should be behind. Now, hold on. They should be
Whoa.
behind every other undefeated, every team that's undefeated. This is
Okay.
just for the first 4 weeks.
I got
Okay.
you. All right.
So
I
then
got
going into week 5,
you. Okay.
okay. Now, if you're like, well, Michigan is 4-1,
Okay.
and now NIU, okay, well, NIU now they've struggled, and maybe they've lost and they've dropped out, whatever.
Okay.
But I just think it would make it more interesting, because also NIU, yeah, they're going to get a bump from Notre Dame winning, but wouldn't they get an even bigger bump if they said in 2024 we were ranked number 5 in the nation? That's a bigger bump than, oh, we beat Notre Dame in 1 game, right? So you're a recruit and you're like, look, we have a chance here. We were ranked number 5. Even if the recruit goes, well, yeah, you were ranked number 5, you could beat Notre Dame. It's like, yeah, we beat Notre Dame, and they were number 5. So I just think that if you are the lower ranked team and you come now, don't get me wrong. If you're 0-1, and I don't know who beat like I don't know who did number 20, whoever that is, right? So if you're 0-1 and you upset number 20, and now you're both 1-1, well, you don't get to take their spot because there's more undefeated teams ahead,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, like right now, you've got a lot of undefeated teams that aren't ranked. Why not? Now, you only have 25 spots. Some of them, like CBS Sports, goes into the full, and they rank 100 and however many, 120.
Yeah.
Which I have to laugh. Can you really tell me the difference of, how if San Jose State is really better or worse than Northern Arizona? And again, Northern Arizona hung with Arizona for a while. Alabama was South Florida was right with them till halftime, and great on Alabama. But I just think that there's something disingenuous about these rankings, especially the preseason rankings before the season starts. The data is not there. On paper, should mean nothing for football. That's why you play
the
game.
preseason rankings. Someone always get exposed every year with the preseason rankings. I think you always find 2 or 3 teams that always get exposed every season.
Iowa every year, Iowa. And it's almost always Iowa State that beats them. It just depends
Seems
on
like
the
doesn't
football
it? Them Cyclones, man, them pesky Cyclones.
How
All right,
often
we got
for years? For years, South Carolina was.
we have business to tend to, sir. This
Oh,
is
okay.
great. We got business.
Last point then. For years, South Carolina was ranked in the top 20 every single year, and every single year it seemed like they went 6 and 5. So
They did. Beamer's bringing them back. But to the business of the day, because we're going to spend a lot of time on building this thing out. Here we go. Are you ready?
Sure.
First topic of the day says, boom. Survey says honeymoon is over. So we got a survey came out of the New York Times today saying that 45 says don't call it a comeback on the eve of the first presidential debate. Our
eve of the eve. We're 2 days out.
Eve of the eve, presidential debate week, if you want to call it that. Let's say 45 is making a comeback. There we go. I got it. Look at you. Your boy got it on the first try. All right. So September 3rd through the 6th, the New York Times Siena College poll says if the 2024 presidential election were held today, would you rather vote for if the candidates were Kamala Harris, or Donald Trump? You got your boy 45 edging out the upstart, the young and fresh upstart, 48-47. Now, it's fair to notice that the margin of error is plus or minus 2.8 points based on the New York Times Siena College poll of 1,695 voters nationwide conducted during the week of September 3rd through the 6th by Lily Boyce and Andrew Park. I have some expanded data on that, and I think I just got to go find it. So
yeah, while you're doing that, a few thoughts on that. Now, remember,
go ahead. You can talk on it while I get it set up.
Yeah, when you get up. So national polls are fine and dandy, but they really don't mean very much because they're national, and we have an electoral college, so that matters. Second, you always have to look at the data, see if anybody was overrepresented. You have to look at now. One of the thing about the percentages, I find it interesting. I'm guessing that since there were almost 1,000, I believe normally the New York Times, the big ones, Rasmussen, they either go somewhere between 950 and 1,200 likely voters, and the higher you go, the better results.
Rasmussen had them at the same margin. 40.
I think the 1 point for Trump. So with that, I also look at I don't like the scaling, how they say, well, we overpolled this and that. How they ask the questions is important. Rasmussen was very straightforward, similar to the New York Times. Rasmussen is generally accused of leaning biased towards Republicans, the New York Times clearly towards Democrats. So the fact that they both have it the same, I think is interesting. But the other part is the 47% and the 48%. Well, I'd like to know what the exact number was, because there's a big difference between 48-47 and 48.4 and 46.6.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a rounding, what the roundings are now. I don't. What are we looking at in the blue on the right?
I know it's a little hard to see. So on the right, which is very interesting note, that is your 2020 vote tabulator. In 2020, it says the did not vote tabulations for 40%, Kamala, as you can see. The Democrat, 40% said they did not vote in the 2020 election, are more likely to vote for Kamala Harris, the Democrat, whereas 49% who did not vote in the 2020 election but participated in this poll said that they are more likely to vote for Donald Trump, the Republican. Whereas
what are those numbers? They're not both 40 and 40?
No, it's 40% Kamala and 49% Donald Trump, with 11% reporting that they don't know / they refuse to acknowledge it. and that was a
This
total of
poll,
304 respondents.
this poll is +9 for Trump for people who did not vote in 2020 but are planning on voting in 2024. Is that right?
That is for people who did not vote.
And
That
they're
is
leaning
correct.
Trump +9, but they didn't vote in 2020, but they're planning on voting in this election.
Yeah. What's interesting is
Wow.
and the breakdown is you have out of the 859 respondents that were men, 56% vote are leaning Trump, 39% are leaning Kamala, whereas 53% are leaning Kamala and 42% are leaning Trump. And the margin is 4% don't know men and 5% don't know women. It's really interesting.
Does this break down by race?
Yeah, it goes age, race, education, race/education, region, neighborhood type, 2024 vote head to head, party ID, and then 2020 vote.
Party ID is a silly one because Democrats are going to vote like 97% towards Harris, and Trump's going to get about 95%.
I'll do you one better. It's 100-0 either way.
Yeah,
So
they're probably embarrassed to say otherwise. Do they break it down black male and black female, or just black?
so right on this one it has white, black, Hispanic, or other. It doesn't
What
say
is right now? What is Trump pulling on black?
14%. Trump needs 20% of the black vote to be a threat, I think. But 14% is in line with where he was in 2016, and then also historically where most Republicans are when they win. So I mean, he's formidable. Anywhere between 12 and 14%. He's formidable. If he can hold a line on that, I think it'll be close.
Yeah, 14 is a good number. It's not a
Yeah.
great number because
Yeah.
you're also talking about
Yeah.
where those 14% are. Whether because if you're looking and say, okay, Trump's going to only pull 10% in Georgia, well, that's a problem. But
Yeah.
if you're going to pull 17% in Georgia, but only say 9% in Illinois, that
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do where, and that's why it's interesting to look at some of these numbers. But that big number of 11% of unknown, or toss up, as it were.
Well,
First, I'm really surprised.
that's in keeping what we've been talking about, right? Who's going to get that? Who's going to speak to that? Those undecideds, those independents that like to hang out like us. And
If that 11, I really don't think that 11% is true though. Just I think that because people know, and this was in the article. If you want to go look at the New York Times article from today, that's where the polling.
it is, yeah.
One of the things said that the undecided voters, and I would take it even more. It's probably not the undecided. It's those that, well, I'm probably going to, but right.
Yeah,
So
they have
they're
us
most
at
likely
8% independents and then 3% undecided.
Yeah. So, but you can even have some of those Democrats or Republicans that are a little just right on the edge, right? I think they can switch, but generally, I think it's you're going after about 10%, right? Um, and of those undecided voters, 28% said they needed more information about Harris, and I believe it was only like not 8 or 9% about Trump. So those undecided voters, for the most part, kind of know if they like Trump or not. What they're waiting for, I think, a big part of it is, what do I know about Harris, and um, what can I learn about Harris? And before we get too deep into where they're winning, again, I will keep beating this drum. The media is not doing its job, because if you have 28% of people saying, I need to know more about a presidential candidate before I can form an opinion, not decide if they're voting for him, just to form an opinion, that means the media is doing an absolutely horrible job of vetting these two candidates, because Trump, most people know Trump. I mean, you can go back and it's not hard to find. The media says everything, and that includes all the misinformation. I don't know if you saw Mark Cuban tweeted out. He's like, "Oh, the mainstream media protects Trump because they don't report what he actually says." And it's like, dude, he got ratioed because most of them were like, "Have you seen what they say about Biden?" And the other
Yes.
was, well, when they quote him, they flat out lie about. Like you saw the quote that
Yeah.
JD Vance was, "Oh, school shootings." Well, that's just part of life. That's not
Yeah.
what he said. He said, unfortunately, yeah, this is part of life, and we have to deal with this, and we have to get better. Way to absolutely butcher the quote AP, and
Yeah.
just
Well,
and everybody then ran all the mainstream kind of ran with that quote of that's all it, oh, we have to just live with it. Yeah, you make Vance sound like a horrible person, but that's not what he said. And that's almost as bad as the Trumps find people on both sides, which was an absolute hatchet job when it comes to what his actual quote was. So, so this debate really has a lot hinging on it because
absolutely.
this is going to be. I think you're going to see huge numbers because there's
Oh,
nothing else going on Tuesday.
absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see combined. If you include everything, including internet viewing, I could see an 80 million popping up.
This. I think this will be the most watched presidential debate since maybe '08. No. I think Hillary Trump was pretty big. I think that pulled about 30 million, if I remember right.
This could be this
This
could this
will
could
easily,
set the new
this will
record.
easily surpass it. Easily.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, before we get into it, I want to play this video clip from your favorite. I think he's an absolute lunatic, but he's your favorite, so I'm gonna play it for you.
Who's my favorite?
Hmm?
Tell me it's Vivek.
You know it is. You know it.
I love Vivek, man. The
Absolutely,
guy's awesome.
absolutely,
I don't care. I'm voting for Vivek in 2028. I don't care who
absolute
else
weirdo.
run against him.
Absolute
That's
weirdo.
just unbelievable.
Absolute weirdo. Let's see if I can get your thoughts on it.
And I don't know what's coming here. So I'm in the dark.
One thing I want to caution against, Sean, is exactly what happened in June. What I expect is that Donald Trump will once again run circles around Kamala Harris, just as he did with Joe Biden in that last debate. The question is that going to be good for us in winning this election or not? Because last time around, it was the catalyst for something drastic happening afterwards, which was in that case, swapping out Joe Biden as the nominee. And I think if Kamala Harris really does tank in this debate, and I think there's a decent chance that happens, I think there are strange things that could happen between now and November because the Democrats, they have been playing this as in some ways one step ahead.
You're suggesting that we may live through another change in candidates if she didn't have a good debate?
No, I don't think it's going to be a change in the candidates. The ballots have already been printed. But I do think that we have a machine that we're up against that has demonstrated that it is going to go to great measures to defeat Donald Trump. You trace this back over the last year and a half. You've got prosecutions. You've got civil cases. You've got extrajudicial attempts to remove him from the ballot. They told us Joe Biden was definitively going to be the nominee, then negotiated for the earliest ever presidential debate in U.S. history because they knew there was a good chance Biden would underperform. Once he did, they swapped him out. I think we've got to learn from those lessons, Sean, to say that they're still going to have many more tricks up their sleeve. So the two scenarios are either Kamala Harris overperforms. I don't expect that to happen. Or what I do expect to happen is Donald Trump to seriously defeat her in this debate as he did last time around. But don't expect that to be the end of this election. I think there's going to be more tricks left up their sleeve.
Very audacious words from the young
Let me go. Let me just
upstart.
go with this. Let me just go with this. Vivek, listen, the dude's super smart, right? I think what he's doing is he is laying the preemptive ground game for saying if she underperforms, we need to be extra super diligent when it comes to the voting boxes, to the people that are on the ground watching the ballots. Because there were enough questions in 2020. Look, and I've said many times, I've never said the 2020 election was stolen. I said it was manipulated. So what you can do is what I think he's doing is he's inoculating the country and saying, look, if Kamala Harris underperforms, you're going to have potential shenanigans. What those shenanigans are could be now. Again, this is where you get into the real conspiracy theory, the suitcases of voting of that, right? But what you do have is you have a system that is right now dominated by social media, and you just had the Facebook Mark Zuckerberg founder and CEO come out and said, "Yeah, the government kind of forced us to say certain things about COVID, and I'm not real happy about it." Well, way to stand up for it 4 years later, there, Mark. How about on the day of? So I think that Vivek is basically saying, "Hey, those of you that are going to vote for Trump, be aware of what's going on. Be really vocal about how this needs to be a fair election. Do your part." I've seen on both sides, Democrats and Republicans in certain places, be extremely underrepresented as poll workers. And that's scary because the poll workers are the ones that are supposed to be on the ground, nonpartisan, really just saying, here's your name, here's your ballot, here you go. And if you compromise that, that's where the real problems. The Russians, if you don't know the history of the United Nations, Russia turned the United Nations into a massive spy outfit, because what they would do is they had, oh, no, this is historic, dude, go read it. This is incredible.
No.
What they did. Okay, so what they did is they got in and they put basically Russians in all of like just the menial, the secretaries and the garbage collectors and all that, but mostly the administrative, the menial secretaries, right? So what they would do is, okay, so here's this article that comes out in Stanford University, whatever, and Stanford says, hey, we're doing this with nuclear fission, and this is really interesting. We've come up with some interesting things. So these UN secretaries would write a letter to the University of Stanford, said the United Nations would love to see what you have for research. Can you please send it? Well, the university getting a letter from the UN going, well, sure, of course, you're the UN. Why wouldn't we send it to you? They would send it and it would go right to Moscow.
Yep.
So if you have these these people on the ground who aren't there to be fair and who are bad about doing their jobs, I think that's where Vivek is kind of coming off and saying, look, we have to be careful. We are looking like, in a lot of ways, kind of a banana republic. If we can't trust our own voting machines and we can't vote, we don't require citizenship, proof of citizenship and ID, not just citizenship, but ID, when countries like Iraq and Afghanistan do. How do we trust our own elections when they're not even as tough to vote in as Afghanistan?
Well, that's not what he addressed it to. He addressed it as an internal threat, as if the Democrats are purposely rigging the elections, and that's been, unfounded. Overwhelmingly.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly. Time and time.
Okay. So
when we talk about the Russian,
the argument against that,
the Russian collusion and the misinformation thing, 100%. Matter of fact, just this past week,
yeah,
the major members of the Republican Party just got caught up in another honeypot for going onto a Russian podcast and pushing out mass information from Russian intel like that. But it wasn't just Russia. It just wasn't just Republicans. Russians been doing intel since like the 70s. So they've been hitting the Democratic Party just as hard. But what I'm saying is it's not a Democratic thing. The Republicans are doing it just as hard. So just as hard as the Democratic machine is working, the Republican machine is working just as equally, if not as hard.
So, and this goes, and it's not a honeypot. A honeypot is what happened to Sewell when you have a pretty girl. I know what you mean.
That's what happened. Yeah, the honeypot is they trapped them. They pulled them into the podcast, lured them in with put
No.
the dude on the unassuming attentions, and then just gave him the Republican dude just started spilling the beans. But go ahead, yeah, we can talk about
Semantics, because I've always understood honeypot to be a romantic thing, but
Oh yeah, oh
um,
no, yeah,
so,
I got
and so that's where you go back and you look at what Bernie Sanders said during the
But he
convention.
was absolutely right. Yeah, he was absolutely right.
Yeah, and if he's saying get the big money out now, do I think Russia? I personally don't believe Russia has a ton of influence on the elections. I just don't. They might try but most people, I don't really think that it's that mass influence that people think it is. I just Iran right now probably has more uh, disinformation and more of an attack.
Oh
But
no,
again, uh, and with the Republicans and the Democrats, yeah, as far as the machine goes, I always laugh when I see my friends talking about the gerrymandering of districts. How and it doesn't matter which side. Oh, the Republicans gerrymander this, that, and the other. It's like, do you not think Democrats do that too, and vice versa? They all do it. All of them do it to stay in power. And so, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and you're getting more money to go on a podcast, and it turns out it's from a Russian uh, government agent, is that really that much different from George Soros pumping in millions and hundreds of millions of dollars into these elections as well? And that's where the whole thing goes back to, yeah, I wish there was a better system in terms of being able, one, get not just getting the big money out that influences, but two, it prices the average person. You will never have another Lincoln. You will never have a guy who was underprivileged, who grew up poor, who made himself into something, that ran for Congress and lost, and then it becomes known for his speaking abilities, for his ideas, who has really the perfect storm as far as the electoral college goes. But I just don't think you'll ever have anybody like that again.
I dropped a link to the DOJ link where they about the social media influencers. You can go back and look at it after the thing, but it's in there. That way we don't forget about it. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't. I think those days we're too far gone for it to go back. Like Pandora's box has been ripped too far open for us to go back. But
Okay. One more quick point. Cheryl Atkinson is, I think, a phenomenal journalist. I think she's pretty neutral. Um, and she did a poll on Twitter. Now, I think her followers generally lean right, but she had a poll that said, "Who are you worried about from the elections? Like, are you worried about China, Russia, Iran, internal threat?" I don't remember what the fourth one. Internal threat meaning like FBI. Oh, it was intel community, and the last one was like FBI or something. FBI slash federal government. Federal government was like 92% of voters on this poll. So people are worried that the corruption inside the United States government is to such a degree that the election is there's going to be questions about the election either way from either side, unless, and this is what I hear on the Republican side, and I don't know who all the people saying it, but the Republicans are saying Trump has to win and win big. And
that's
if he does,
that is such an ironic statement. It's so weird to me. People will say, okay, outside of my guy winning, if my guy doesn't win, or if my girl doesn't win and doesn't win convincingly, the only other option
conspiracy.
is the system is absolutely and totally rigged. There's no other reason for my guy to lose except for the system at the very lowest levels in Boondock County, Kentucky, has been infiltrated by the highest forms of the CIA. It's insane how
Here's well,
unreasonable people have become.
except yes, I understand that the idea that it doesn't happen, shouldn't happen, doesn't. Okay. Unfortunately, there are examples where that's simply not true. 1960, Richard Nixon versus John F. Kennedy. Kennedy's team is losing in Illinois, in the Cook County, which is Chicago. If he doesn't win Cook County, he loses Illinois. If he loses Illinois, he most likely loses the election. As the historical story goes, Major Daley, who was, very much part of the Democratic machine, gives a phone call or receives a phone call from the Kennedy campaign. And basically, hey, yeah, we're thinking it's pretty tight in Cook County. We're a bit worried. And Daley says, well, how worried are you? He says, we're about 20,000 votes worried. He says, okay. And overnight, Cook County suddenly came up with 20,000 more Democratic votes, which flipped Cook County to Kennedy to Illinois to Kennedy, and the election to Kennedy. A more recent one. Who was the guy that Saturday Night Live performer from the 70s?
You are speaking. Listen to me. You are speaking to me. You are speaking to me as an informed African American man who is more than knowledgeable about the
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about everybody. Not everybody knows this stuff.
So, like, there for years there have been a pervasiveness of let's just say a manipulation of tabulation, right, in the South for Black candidates, right, who in it's amazing in Black rural populations where you have a Black candidate and the population is 98% Black, and that Black candidate loses that election in that Black city by 100% to the white candidate. 100%, not a single vote. They didn't even vote for themselves in their own precinct. So I get it. Historically, I know people are not perfect, right? But on a major scale, we can sit back and say, yeah, right. My point, yeah, my point is
the argument is it doesn't have to be a major scale.
Yeah, my point is though, it's not. Oh, it's the blue team, and it's only the blue team, or no. It's the red team, and it's only we're the good guys here, and if we don't win, the only reason we don't win is because those guys are cheating, and we'll never do it to you.
So remember, KJ, my whole thing is our election system. Look, before Trump beat Hillary, you had the Dems beating the drums saying these voting machines you can hack these voting machines. We can't have electronic voting. What are we doing? Yeah. And so, did they suddenly become more secure? Or in 2020 when Trump was making his allegations and every investigation that was begun kind of didn't go through? I don't know. I think the bigger thing of all of this was the manipulation by social media, such as the Hunter Biden story going bye-bye just before. The Intel community, how many Intel professionals came out and said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian Intel? Those are the type of things that make people not believe in our system. Because not only are you being told you're a conspiracy theorist, but then when you're proven right, none of those guys were. You think a single one of those Intel professionals was held accountable in any way? I don't. And trust me, that goes way wider than just elections, because not a single person went to jail over Enron or the housing collapse, et cetera, right?
But here's the machine, though. Yeah. Here's the machine, and this is the part that cooks my noodle every time. Trump was president for 4 years, right? He was president for 4 years. The elections were rigged, or there was a problem with the elections. He had 4 years to implement a updated voting system. 4 years. That man ain't said nothing about voting in 4 years.
Well,
Nothing.
first of all, he would have only had 2 years
Well,
because Democrats. No, listen, why?
no, 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 no. We can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. Because when we talk about because when we talk about presidencies, we say 4 years. Because when we talk about Biden economy, we say, hey, he got 4 years to fix the economy. When we talk about everybody else, they get 4 years. Regardless, we're not talking about the subtext.
Yeah, I do this, but here's the thing. I try to be realistic about it. This is
Yeah.
why I go all the way back to 94. And I say, look, Clinton was crashing hardcore in 92, 93. He had the Democrats. He had a Hillary trying to do the healthcare, and that just blew up in his face, all this stuff. 94 was so bad that Newt Gingrich and the Contract with America came in and absolute red waved it, right? Okay. So at that point, you had Clinton in the White House and you had Republican House and Senate. And then only the good stuff got passed. And we unfortunately are not in that anymore, where instead of the Republicans and the Democrats in the House and the Senate saying, hey, let's put this forward, let's put that, they stop it all and it's broken. And instead of the Republicans saying, hey, the Senate, and Republicans only have the House, they don't have the Senate. But instead of working together and getting the good things forward, and then the president saying yes or no, and the good things getting forward, everything's getting kind of stopped. Yeah, I agree. And that's where, like elections, I say in 2018, Trump didn't win, and so suddenly the money wasn't there. Now, you can argue and say that Trump should have focused on voter cards and doing those things, and I won't necessarily disagree with
that was his thing. He has his own priorities. I mean, that
sure.
my thing, you can't come back. You can't come back later and say, oh, this is all messed up when you had the ball. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. So if you go and you say, hey, you know what? We thought the replay system was working and everything, and then we went back and we looked at the tape, and it turned out the replay system was wrong because they didn't have this extra camera angle, and so that play that was ruled as an incomplete pass should have been a touchdown. And then the NFL goes, oh, well, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Meh. So none of it's perfect. I get none of it's perfect. I'm worried in terms of the most basic, simple things. If I go in to a voting booth and I press, I'm voting for X candidate, is there a chance, no matter how minuscule, is there a chance that my vote gets messed up electronically? Even if it's small chance, it should be zero. Paper ballots should be zero. We saw in 2000, paper ballots, they did their job. The hanging chads and all that in Florida. I look at it and say, yeah, I'm with you. Trump should have done a lot of things. But I find that argument also super duper funny in terms of the current argument of, well, if Trump wins, he's going to be a dictator. He's going to be a fascist dictator and take over. It's like, if his goal is to be a fascist dictator, he would have put the things in motion in 2016 and 17 when he first got in office.
He did.
So
he did. He elected three three Supreme Court justices. Brother, the power
ruled against him.
No. But he did not have the presidential power, the executive power that he has now.
You think he'll? What do you mean?
The executive power that he has now, or the office of the presidency now, the jurisdiction that the office of the president can wield now, he did not have in 2016.
Sure, he did.
Not. No, he did
Absolutely
not.
Did.
No, he did not.
Nothing
the impunity that he has, the ability to wield now, based off of the latest SCOTUS decision, he did not have in 2016. He did not.
No, hold on. The constitutional aspect of it would have still been there. He still could have done it. Then he would have been challenged, and you could say whether it was held up or not. The problem with what people read into the SCOTUS decision, all the stuff that SCOTUS basically said was, look, the executive has their power, the legislative has theirs, the judicial has theirs. As long as the president is doing his job, then he is he has some immunity as long as it's based in his job. That's always been true. That's been true of law
That
enforcement falls under
has
the
always been
executive
true.
branch.
But that's just taking a wide brush and saying, okay, hey, if he does it within the scope of his job, then he's clear. But what
You
you
know what
did,
the easiest argument against?
yeah, but
The easiest argument, the argument I've heard is, well, then Trump, under the scope of his job, could drop a missile on his political opponents, right? That's the uh, well, that's the absurdum. That's the reducto ad absurdum. Is you take it to the most logical, ridiculous point. But I've seen that from the Democrats going, well, because of SCOTUS, Trump can get in office, and as long as he says it's an official act, he could assassinate his political opponents. He could throw them in jail. And you sit there and you go, if that's true, why isn't Biden doing it? And the idea of, oh, well, it's because Biden has character.
no,
Bull. He knows it would never stand up. And not only would it not stand up, because the Constitution is only as good as the people who back it. And that's the American people. So if somebody like Trump, uh, let's not say Trump, candidate Smith, who
the
becomes
Constitution
president.
is subjective. We can't act like the Constitution is definitive. It is no longer definitive. The Constitution has always been subjective. It has always been based to it has always has the Constitution has always come down to the interpretation
Interpretation.
of those who are in authority. If the Constitution was the binding document, then the guys in the 1800s would have wrote it and let it rock. Then the guys in the 60s wouldn't have been able to come through and change it. Then the guys in the 20, what do we got? Who is the guys who are in there now? They can't come in and they can't make their adaptation. So the Constitution is no more effective than anything else based off of who's in authority in society at that time. So
So
does it
that begs
have
the question.
merit? Sure, but it's interpretive. It's subjective.
Well, yeah, of course it's the interpretation of SCOTUS. That's their job. That's the job of.
But that's what I'm saying. So this iteration of SCOTUS's rule that the executive branch has wide-ranging effects. Hey, the president says, hey, that's within my job. I can do that. If I want to send the military to stop a protest, that's within my job. You can't do that. Traditionally, you were not able to do that.
Assuming there aren't laws in place like posse comitatus, right?
Fair
That's
enough.
where the checks and balances come in.
Fair enough.
The executive branch has always had immunity to a pretty large degree. That's why when Bush got out of office and it turned out that the intel on weapons of mass destruction was not as strong as was, said. It was some of the intel was cherry picked and all that. Okay. There's a reason that that W was not arrested and charged with a war crime, because everything he was doing in regards specifically to the Iraq war was executive branch stuff. He has the immunity to do that. Obama had the immunity to do that. Trump, Biden, they all have certain immunity. And for SCOTUS to just write it, now, why did they write it? Because somebody challenged it. Somebody said, look, that's not okay, that whatever the catalyst was, that's not okay that Trump was able to do this. And SCOTUS said, no, look, okay, if we have to enumerate what this means, then we're going to enumerate it. What really should happen, and this is what happens for the vast majority of the time, and should happen. The Supreme Court says, okay, hold on. This is supposed to be a legislative issue. If you guys don't like the rules, go back and change the laws. Go change the rules. We're here. We're the referees. If you don't like how they're doing this, and you think that the Eagles' fourth down butt push thing from a yard out isn't fair, change the rules. So what did the NFL do? The owners got together and they said, owners being legislative in this example, they got together and said, yeah, we're going to outlaw the tush push, right? So the Supreme Court, and I find this really, you and I have talked about this. And so I understand where you're coming from. So I'm going to use you as the plural,
Yep.
or,
Sure.
or them, right?
Sure.
When I see that this argument that the Supreme Court is so biased because it's 6-3, it completely
Yeah. No, I
well,
don't.
but the argument, here's the
Yeah.
argument, though.
Yeah.
But not necessarily you, but the argument as a whole. And this is an argument. This is not a straw man. This is not a
Sure.
what some people say.
Sure.
The argument is that because it's 6-3, it's tipping the balance of power towards conservative. Well, first of all, we don't have a conservative who's even running for president right now. Second of all, we have seen too many instances by the current Supreme Court where the justices who are supposed to be staunch conservatives go across the aisle and they interpret the Constitution the way the people on the left did. You've had so many, and just as importantly, most of the decisions that have come out in the last 2 sessions, the last 2 years, since the Kanji Brown has come in, most of them have been 7-2, 8-1, 9-0. Very few have been 5-4, and you can say, well, those are the really tough ones. But to me, I look at that and say the Supreme Court are much more in line. Now, if you want to say, well, who's the outlier? It's Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, no matter what you think about him, we go back and watch some episodes ago, and you can get what KJ thinks about Clarence Thomas. That's fine. But I think Clarence Thomas, at the same time, is probably the most consistent justice. Now, you don't have to agree with him, but I think he's clearly the most consistent. But when you're talking about elections and you're talking about the things like what Vivek was talking about, there is unfortunately an undercurrent of what you said. If my guy or girl didn't win, the only explanation is the system is rigged. And I agree that is the sentiment. The fact that that's the sentiment is scary is not the right word. It's more than disappointing. It's somewhere in there, though. Because if the foundation of this country ultimately is, as a constitutional republic, is being able to freely and fairly elect people to represent us at the state and I think the state's probably better than at the federal, but I understand your historical thing. There's got to be a better. There's got to be a better system. If you could buy a lottery ticket and if you win, how can we not just have on your driver's license, here's your code or your ID card. Here's your code. You go log in and you provide some information only when you set it up. I don't know if it's a PIN or whatever, because if somebody goes on, if I find KJ's driver's license and I'm going to go vote for RFK Jr. It seems like that's the easiest way to do this, and the fact that we don't just blows my mind.
You know what? I was talking to a mentor of mine this week when I was doing some research, and he brought up a very interesting point. And I sat back and I pondered and I thought about this for a long time. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me. And he said, if you sit back and you look at America over the last 20 years, you'll find a very interesting dynamic that explains why there's so much turmoil and upheaval in America. So something happened at the beginning of the turn of the century. And it was something profound that we didn't really understand what was happening at the time. And so what happened is America went post-racial, but it went post-racial for all the wrong reasons. And I was confused and dumbfounded by this old African-American man trying to explain to me what he was saying. And he said, in no uncertain terms, America separated its classes. No longer did America look at its classes in terms of race. It separated everybody from a certain financial level got to maintain their race, but everybody below a certain financial status got designated as black. And for the first time at the turn of the century, America treated everybody at a certain financial level as black people. So what happened is you get Hispanics feeling what it's like to be black. You get black people feeling like what it feels like to be black. You get Asians feeling like what it feels like to be black. And you get, for the first time in America's history, middle-class white people feeling like what it feels like to be black. And they don't like it. So when you get white people, middle-class white people who are disenfranchised, who get their votes manipulated, who get voter intimidation, or have that, or feel like their votes don't count, or you get their jobs played with, or you get their economies or you get their neighborhoods played with and manipulated. You said people don't like that. See, black people, that's the black experience in America, and black people have been conditioned to experience that. That's black life in America, and black people have been conditioned to go through that since Reconstruction. But for the first time in American history, it's not a unique black experience. And he said it's a hard thing to come to terms with, because for the first time you can speak a common language, and America doesn't know how to deal with it, because the elite class, they don't have to deal with that. But he said the playing field for everybody else, because there's no more middle class. He's like, before then there was a buffer. If you were in the middle class, you were still able to separate yourself. But he said once the middle class got taken away, that took away that buffer. And he was like, now everybody's living that black experience. And he was like, it don't feel good. And I thought about it, and it makes sense. Because you think about it. What are Republican issues? Oh, they're taking away our votes. They're taking away our jobs. They're taking away our neighborhoods. Black people were saying that in the 50s. Voter intimidation. We can't vote. Why can't we vote? Our votes don't count. Our votes don't matter. Why are these people moving into our neighborhoods? Why are they taking away our jobs? We've had these conversations. These conversations are all circular. It's just that black experience coming right back around. But this time it's not just it's just not unique to the black community. It's that whole class. And it is a wild experience. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's more common, man. It's interesting. It is interesting. And it's hard to deal with. It is hard to deal with.
Well, okay. I'd have to really chew on it, but my first
It took me a while.
Well, okay. So my first, as a amateur historian, my first thought is first of all, it's very difficult to define the black experience, right? Right? I mean, you can't. It's very difficult to say what was the black experience, because up until 1964, the black experience was something pretty specific, depending on what part of the country you lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair. During that time, and you're talking historically, and we've talked about this as far as the book White Trash and such.
Mm-hmm.
The Irish in the North
Mm-hmm.
were treated like crap. The Scottish were treated like crap. The Japanese, there had to be a treaty between the U.S. and Japan, so the U.S. would stop treating the Japanese citizens that had immigrated into the U.S. so badly that Japan said, "Okay, well, tell you what, we still, these are still our friends and our families and all that have immigrated, and you're treating them so badly that we will promise not to allow any more immigration if you stop treating them so bad." And
they will pay reparations that way, but that's a whole different conversation.
So Chinese, Chinese, all that, Native Americans, all that stuff. Okay. So black experience, as far as everybody is feeling the black experience, I'm this close to you, but I would change it to one simple thing: the poor experience. Because I think in America we really misunderstand what the socioeconomic impact has been in the country, and especially currently, because we can't understand what it was like to be a slave.
Well,
We
to
can't
be black, yeah, for the longest time, to be black was to be poor. See, and now I'll give you the tie-in is to be black. The black experience was to be trapped in a place in society where there was no way out. Right? You had no way up. There was no way out. No matter how successful you were, no matter how smart you were always placed in a glass ceiling, right? Even entertainers, even your scientists, even your best and your brightest were glass ceiling. For the first time in society, white men are placed in a box. White men have never been segregated against. White men have never been told no. White men have never been told, hey man, you can't get this job. Why? Because I'm hiring somebody else. White women have never been segregated against in society. Not in America, they haven't. For the first time, this is the first time white men have never been told you can't get this. And this is the first time in society that they've been told, no matter how good you are, I'm not giving you this because and the reason why is because I just don't want to. And that's the black experience. And it sucks like shit. It sucks like shit. And all we can do is sit back and be like, hey man, grab a seat. Welcome. Glad to have you. So yeah, to be poor is to be black. And it's been that way for a long time. That's weird, man. It's a weird place to be in. Weird place to be in.
I just don't. I don't know. It's so well, and the reason I say that is because I also, as a libertarian, as a conservative, as an individualist, I still think that on the vast majority of one-on-one interactions, there's some level of fair play, and I get that. I get that you and I going into the same job interview. I've made this argument. You and I going to the same job interview, and we have the same credentials. You're probably getting the job depending on where we're living, but for the most part, you're probably getting the job because you check some quota boxes that I don't. And that's okay. Uh, is that something that changes the white experience? I don't know, but I don't look at that as how is that a Republican or a Democrat thing, and I don't think that really necessarily affects the voting. I don't think that.
That's the thing. It's not a red or blue thing. It's not. It's just an experience.
Well, okay, but by that token, then the next logical step is okay. Then the next battleground is rich against poor. Well, yeah. See, you do that, but you know what? Rich versus poor has caused hundreds of millions of deaths in the 20th century by saying we're going to make everybody equal.
But we can't. So
oh, comrade, how do you not think we can all be equal? We are all in the same time.
If you think of America as a corporation, it will be detrimental to the corporation's bottom line for the employees to revolt, right? So there's no way we would ever unite. They would acquiesce before they allow us to unite and revolt. No way. So we have these petty quarrels, right? We have the red versus blues, the black versus whites, the affirmative actions, blah blah blah. It keeps us busy, it keeps us distracted, it keeps the fun stuff going, right? But ultimately, it's just the experience. We're all fighting the same damn experience, man. We are.
Yes, but that is true throughout history. My family's over here. We're farming. We're doing our thing. Your family's over there. You got some extra pigs. Wait a minute. Why do you have extra pigs? What happens if I come over and try to take those pigs? There's a little turf war,
Right.
and there's battling, so this has always been part of the human experience. We've talked about the slavery. We've talked about, you have Europe. You have the founding of Australia. You
Hmm.
have, Brazil. Why does Brazil do what they do and we do what we do? And
Yeah.
why was Europe successful? Why was America successful? Why is America more of a dominant force than Canada? Why did Mexico never really take off? Mexico has phenomenal natural resources, but why is Mexico? I mean, I think it's pretty arguable historically that is a much more corrupt government than the United States
Very much.
in most ways, right? So why did France do what they did? Why did Germany do? How did Hitler come to power in Germany? How did anybody? I mean, you start going back and you can really say, again, I'm super interested in some of the African stuff because Africa has no history. It Most of the history in Africa was oral history, right? And so a lot of it's been lost. So you have to wonder, like, what was it about Egypt that made them such a dominant power 6 millennia ago, and then suddenly they just kind of, what happened? What happened to the Mali Empire? What happened to, all these different things? And that goes for everywhere. Why is India not more of a superpower? They've got the manpower to do some incredible things. China. So when you look at these things, I look at it all and go, okay, we're looking at it not only through we're looking through a few very unique lenses.
We are.
We're
I get.
looking at it through it today. We're looking at it through a racial. We're looking through an economic, and we're looking at it through a, let's say, patriotic, our country, right?
Yeah.
Three viewpoints that you and I are 1%. We're one percenters in the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
right?
We have a very unique perspective. Even in our darkest troubles, we still have it, you know, tons better than 98.89%
Yeah.
of the world. So the
Poor in America.
yeah,
Yeah.
the issues that I'm complaining about,
Yeah. Yeah. Poor in America is not poor in India.
yeah,
Poor in America is not
absolutely,
poor
yeah.
in
I
Haiti.
would not, yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be so pompous as to put myself or my plight in the in
Oh,
the
sure.
same category as people around the world. Like the shit that
Right.
I
And
complain about is just like, you know what I mean?
and I'm certainly not accusing
Mhm.
you of
Yeah,
that. I just do think that so as Americans, we are a bit, we're pompous. We
absolutely.
are overly self-serving. We think we're better than everybody else. But here's the dirty little secret of all that. Historically, we are. There has to be a best, right? You can be an Atlanta Braves fan, and your team is either the world champion or they're not. And there's what 20 now what 31 other teams?
Yep. Yep.
There's 31 other teams that aren't, right? So teams, as a fan, you can bitch and moan about the Dodgers or the Braves or whoever, but ultimately there's only one world champion. Well, America has been the world champion, and no matter where we are so far, we've been the world champion for coming up on 200 years. Will that remain? Now that's a little bit better question. If you've ever read Catch 22, there's a character, a dirty old Italian man, and he's arguing with one of the American soldiers. And the American soldiers said, "Oh, America's the greatest. We're the greatest country in the world." And he says, "Okay, our America's been around for 200 years. Toads have been around for longer than that. Are you saying toads are better than you?" He's like, "No, no, America's the greatest. We're the best." He says, "Oh, really? Well, will America always be the greatest?" "Yes, we'll always be." "Will America survive 1 million years?" "Well, well, maybe not." And the old man cackles and he says, "Yeah, but there will be frogs around in a million years. You're not even as good as a frog, see?" So there's arguments to be made for all this stuff, and
Yep.
if you haven't read Catch 22 and you're a service
Yep.
member, you absolutely should. One of my favorite books. But it goes to, yeah, a lot of this stuff we're arguing about. I've said this a while ago. Like, if Harris wins, and I'm just going to say Harris because it's easier than trying to say Kamala, and I say Trump. What's funny? How funny is this? Like, people, oh, Kamala, we need to say Kamala's name right. Nobody says Donald. Like,
Yeah.
nobody says. Everybody just says
I
Trump.
always
So why
wondered
can't you
that.
just say
Yeah. I was
Harris?
like, I always wondered that. Why don't you just call her by her last name? It's so weird. Like,
Vice President Harris, former
yeah,
President Trump. Easy enough. Okay.
Harris Trump.
Then you're not worried. Vivek, hey, I'm going to vote for Vivek in 2028, but I don't know how to say Ramaswamy. I'm not sure I'm even saying his name right. But if it's on the ballot, I know what it is. Um, so so ultimately, though, like, what policies, and this is where you and I, and I'm just going to keep so you guys don't know who this is, Top. Me and Top, our argument. And Top's argument is, I want to know what is going to affect me. And to me, the easiest argument is, here's what I paid for groceries 3 years ago. Here's what I'm paying for groceries now. And in my example, the one receipt I looked up from Walmart, it was literally up over 300%. Why? I don't know. I've seen most people when they do this, it's up somewhere around 80 to 120%, right? And to me, if you look at the policies that are going to affect you, you're looking at the economy in terms of inflation, because once inflation goes up, I laugh right now. Inflation's down all the way down to like 2.9%. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that inflation hasn't been over 20% for the past 3 years. That means everything's gone up in price over 20%. My paycheck hasn't gone up 20% as yours. So that's hitting me right in the wallet. Um, Illegal immigrants coming across the border. Does that affect me directly? Yes. Here's why. When you have 10 million people come across the border, they get counted in the census. So if my little county here in Georgia doesn't have as many immigrants because they passed laws that, several years ago, that a lot of the illegals moved out because you had to have proof of citizenship, etc. And let's say they move, let's say 50,000 people move out of Atlanta that are illegally here in this country, and they relocate uh, en masse to Chicago. This isn't how it works, but let's just say, well, that 50,000 might tip where now Georgia gets one less electoral vote and Chicago gets one more. Well, now think about that over 10 million. Okay. So when you start talking about, and you see some of these conspiracy things about like replacement theory and some of them, yeah, they seem kind of silly. I don't really subscribe to them, but I do subscribe to a sovereign nation. And so when I see 10 million people have come across the border in the past 3.5 years, and then I have one of the candidates saying, "Well, now I'm going to get tough." Am I surprised that Trump called and said, "Hey, let's not pass this border law because that's going to hurt my chances of winning"? Does that surprise me? No, but the damage was already done, and Nixon did the same thing. Nixon called up the president of South Korea, or I'm sorry, of South Vietnam, and said, "Hey, we know what's going on. We know what you're negotiating. We know each other. You know I'd be a better president for you and for your country, and I've got your back. So can you hold off for about maybe 60 days on what you're going to announce?"
Reagan did
And
it too.
of course, because what do politicians do? They want to stay in power. Okay. Now, looking at that and looking at where we are now, I am still just amazed that we have one candidate who received 0 votes in the primary for their party. If that doesn't tell you there's a problem with the system, now look, if Joe Biden had, and the whole thing conspiracy, if they pushed the debates earlier because they thought Joe Biden would do poorly and that would expose him. I don't think so. I don't think that's what it was. I think they thought they were going to get ahead of it and show that Trump is a big meanie. Orange man, even more bad. He beating up on Joe. I think that's what it was. I don't think that was any real conspiracy. But if Joe Biden had the day before the debate dropped dead from a heart attack, would we be where we are today? I don't know. It's a really interesting. Would the Democrats at that point have said, "Oh, well, that sucked. Now we have President Harris. Okay, is she the de facto, or do we still go and open this up? Is this something that we? That's the question. I don't have a problem if Harris is the nominee because Joe Biden passes away, untimely passes away. That happened. We've seen presidents die weeks after their election.
I mean, that's why she's the VP. So
yeah. But the way they did it, and again, you had, and I've said this a few times, the fact that Black Lives Matter came out and said this is undemocratic, and they said, look, we're not against Harris. This isn't against her as a black woman, but we do think that the way this was done was not right. And as far as from a representative democracy, I agree. But the problem is, in terms of a political party, it was fine. That's how they did it. And so I'm not a Democrat. I'm not part of the DNC. If everybody on the DNC side of the aisle is okay with how they did it, who am I to say anything about it? The political party. The political parties, for anybody who doesn't realize this, the political parties are individual corporations. They have nothing to do with democracy. They have nothing to do with anything except keeping their own people in power because they're on their side of the aisle and their team. And that's it. They are corporations unto themselves. They collect money for themselves. They distribute the money however they want. There are no rules for the DNC or the RNC past whatever they decide. And it's a lot easier to change those rules. You need to go to bed. It's a lot easier to change those rules than to change the rules of the legislature and the laws. So these ultimately, the individual laws and who the president is and all that stuff, I'm a lot more affected by who the school board is here in Augusta because they're the ones that are going to hire me or fire me as a teacher.
That is the big issue. You ready to jump into this thing?
This is going to be interesting. Let's see how it works.
37 minutes. All right. The road to 270. All right. For those of you guys who want to play along, or if you want to go and try to figure it out on your own, we are using the website 270towin.com. On that website, you can use an interactive map to where you can change the electoral delegate count to however you like to carve your own path to see, award the delegates or the electorates, however you want to change them out. What we plan on doing right now is we are going to try to guess which states are going to be how the states are going to fall this election cycle. Between Lance and I, we're going to alternate turns. We're going to go, if you don't mind, Lance, we're going to start. You want to go east to west or west to east?
Oh, let's go how the sun rises.
Let's do it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a share screen, or I'm going to pull up the slides that show. I guess I can kind of talk my way through this, right?
And we have a milkshake bet on this, just so everybody knows. This is really, really important. Who has to buy the milkshakes?
All right. So I wonder if I can do both. All right. So
if not, we can just write them down. You have a pen and paper, right?
Yep. All right.
I'm gonna put it on you.
All right. So unfortunately, I am not going to be able to do both at the same time, but I can kind of talk my way through. So what
so let's go with yours, and then just whichever ones are different on mine, just make a little note of what I had different. So we'll go with yours as the base.
Okay, so as we click on it, we're gonna go through. But I wanted to pull up a screenshot and kind of okay, cool. So here's what we do. So we can add this to the stage first to kind of talk about it. All right. So what I got on the stage now is, and all of this is from 270towin.com. This is the how the electoral college played out over the last 8 election cycles all the way to 92, right? So you can kind of see the West Coast kind of played out traditionally blue. You got the blue pocket up in, or they call it the blue wall up in the Northeast. And then you got that Midwestern red wave, which is always rock solid. And then that Georgia, you can see Georgia just kind of goes however it wants to. Florida flip-flops. 96 was really weird. That was those Clinton comeback years. 2008 was the Obama years, 8 and 12. These were the Bush years, 2000, 2004.
I'm really surprised the 2008 that there's not more blue for Obama, honestly, with how big of a one.
It was pretty close. It was pretty close. And then obviously 16, and then that was the Biden. That was the Biden comeback. And then what you have, yeah, let's see. And then I decided to go all the way back. That was
the beauty of the 84 map.
Oh yeah, that 84 map was insane.
Like you've got 1980, and you got 1980, and you're like, could I mean just look how gorgeous. If we could just do 1980, and 1984 went, hold my beer.
Yeah, that was insane. Like you see, like
72.
72 was insane.
72.
I don't.
What the Nixon campaign people of breaking into Watergate. Now remember, it wasn't Nixon himself. He didn't know about it until later. But what those jokers were doing meant
there we
nothing.
Go. That way you can get a better look at 72. 72
meant nothing.
Insane.
They won what? Like they won Massachusetts and one little district in Virginia.
Yeah.
And they went out and threw it away because they thought they needed what? Like insight into the McGovern, how inept the McGovern was. I think it was McGovern in 72.
So as you can kind of see, our country's not really like, there's been certain election cycles where there's just been runaway landslides, but overall, over the history of the country, there's always been, a pretty good balance, right, between red and blue states, right? So regardless of what they tell you on the news, there's never been any strict dominance either way, right? And then again, 270towin.com is really cool. You go in there, they go all the way back to, I want to say, the 1860 election, which is super dope. I had a lot of fun playing around on that website all week.
If anybody does this on their own and sends it in to us before the election, and you hit it right on, we'll buy you a milkshake too.
That's it. We should do a contest. All right, so here we go. Let's see. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So, we got northeast. No, you know what? I've always loved Florida. And Florida's always the easiest to call. So I will let you go first with Florida because I like the hard ones, and then I will take my beloved state. Or do you want, since you're a resident, do you think that's cheating if you call it?
No, let's just start and go.
All right.
So Florida, I've got Trump in Florida.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Outside of Atlanta, I don't think she has enough clout to pull Georgia.
Agreed.
I think it'll be close, but I see that. Is it a hard red though, or is it a soft red?
At this point, it doesn't matter because it's win or loss. There's no, it's just a win or loss. So to me, they're all going to be either dark red or dark blue because you win or lose. And remember, this is 2 days before the debate, So this is where we're looking at right now.
Let's go all the way up to. We can go out. We'll finish out the South up this way and then come all the way back because
Is there a state in the South that Trump doesn't win?
I don't think so. I think Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee are all red.
Well, Arizona doesn't count as South.
I mean Arkansas. I'm sorry, Arkansas.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then
so what do you think about North Carolina?
North Carolina. I think it's red, man. I don't see her winning anything in the South. I don't. I just don't.
If she doesn't win, if we're looking right there, and you say Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, South, all go for Trump.
She does not win Texas.
Do you? Well, right. So if you go Texas to North Carolina, and it's all for Trump, how many minutes after Trump is named the president do we hear calls about racism in the South and how a black woman didn't win any in the South and how that must have been nefarious and clearly racist by all the white voters? How many minutes?
I'm sure you'll hear rumblings of it. I don't think you hear. My biggest concern is Atlanta. Atlanta was enough to carry Biden, right? But I think with the new laws that they implemented in Georgia because of the 2020 election, I think that's going to be enough to push it back in Trump's favor. And that's why I don't think she carries Georgia.
And just to be clear, like there was a whole to-do when those laws were passed about how unfair they were and how disenfranchised and all that. Yet those laws, early election laws and such that were passed in Georgia, were less restrictive than like 25 other states. So it was just a bunch of blue team yelling at the red team in that. So
yeah,
I think it makes it more likely for a true outcome, as it were. If you're looking at Texas to North, let me ask you: Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, South, and we can include Kentucky in this if you want.
Yeah, so Kentucky, West Virginia, I think.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you because we're both going to make a guess on this, even though we have this all read. What's the one state that you think you're most likely wrong about? If one of these goes blue, which one do you think it is?
Her best shot is going to be in the South.
Yeah, just where we're talking, just in the South.
South Carolina.
Okay, you're going to go with South Carolina?
Yep.
I'm going to go North Carolina. Side bet on that one. Okay.
Got
so I think it's safe to say we both look across here: Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana. I think we look at those as Trump, right?
Yeah. Ohio, I think, is blue. I think Ohio goes blue because of the abortion.
Really?
Yeah, I think Ohio.
I don't. I think because of Vance.
Oh, you know what?
There's two.
Yeah.
I think there's too many people. Normally, I might agree with you, but I think that the idea that people are going to, I think the people in Ohio probably know Vance better. And so the smear things and some of the things that have been misconstrued and taken out of context on Vance, I think are less likely to hurt in Ohio than any other state. But so I think Ohio.
I'll give you Ohio, but I think they get Michigan and Wisconsin though.
You think Michigan and Wisconsin go blue?
Yep.
Okay. I'll go blue on Illinois. I'll go blue on Minnesota. I don't know which one.
That's Ohan. That's Ilhan country.
Yeah, but you know what? Just because Walz is in Minnesota, I don't think he really affects Wisconsin and Michigan that much, um, that competition, because I do think that what I've seen of Walls and those now here's the thing: people in Wisconsin and Michigan might know about Walls more. I what I have seen from Walls, um, I wouldn't vote for the guy. Okay, I have way too many issues with some of the things he said and how he's reacted. That interview with CNN and Dana Bash, I thought was just absolutely horrible for him. I thought he came off as just ridiculously bad. But Minnesota still goes blue. I think one of those two, Wisconsin and Minnesota, I think they split, and I'm not sure how, because you've got Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, who
Right.
somehow is a still popular governor, which I don't understand after COVID. But I could see. I'm going to go Wisconsin blue
You
and
sure?
Michigan red.
And Michigan red?
Yeah,
Let's
I think I think there's a split there.
okay. So Pennsylvania, always the one, right? So Joe carried Pennsylvania, and that's what put him over in 2020. And it looked like it's gonna come down to that one again.
So let's leave them alone for a minute.
Okay. All right. So we're going to the Midwest. I don't see nothing changing in the Midwest.
Well, let's finish off the Northeast.
I don't
Let's
think
let's
he
finish.
gets New York. So you got New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and
Wait a
DC.
minute. Last week you said Trump was going to win New York.
I do, but then I went back and relooked it. I don't think he
Oh,
does.
okay.
Because
I
I
don't
looked
think it.
out because historically I had to go back and I looked, and like historically, like you got to be a bad mamma jamma. And I just don't think he got enough clout, honestly.
I don't know what the numbers the last time that New York went red, but my guess off the top of my head would probably be 84.
Hold on, let's go back and look. Let's see, because I can pull it back up. Oh, what's
88. 88's blue. Okay, so red is 84. Let's see if it went red anything after 88.
that? 92, 96, 2000. Yeah, no.
Nope. So I was right. 84.
Yep.
That's why I think it is blue.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So
New York City's just too big.
yeah, that's what I'm
It's
saying. Like, it's that's mad. I didn't realize how much clout New York City pulled, man. That is
all the
massive.
cloud.
Yeah, that is massive
Yeah.
weight, man. So
Yeah.
I was wrong. So Virginia is interesting, right?
Mhm.
I was leaning red, but then I was like, I think it's gonna go blue, man. I look back. You had so it was red. The last 4 election cycles, it was red. Then you had 4 election cycles before that: 2004, 2096, and 92. It was red, and then in 08, 12, 16, and 20, it was blue. So it's fickle. It's flippable.
Well, so I look at it and say DC, even though District of Columbia is different, you got to remember everybody that works in DC actually lives in Virginia.
Yeah.
So Virginia, I think, has enough deep staters to. I say that in jest. I actually think there's enough people that do work in Virginia that are federal government employees that are much more comfortable with keeping Harris in office, simply because if Trump ever were to get in office and follow through on his campaign promise, which I don't believe. If you're a department if you're in a department of um, education, would you ever vote for Trump when
Oh,
he's
you talking
saying,
about
"Look, I'm going to come in and eliminate your job"?
yeah, no. Yeah.
I
Nah.
think there's enough fear in Virginia about a Trump presidency and not for the social stuff that all that. I think it's economic. Oh
Yeah.
crap! If I vote for this guy, he's already said he's going to cut the federal workforce. I don't want that. Even though realistically it's supposed to be out of just retirements and everything, but I do think Virginia goes blue. New York clearly blue. Vermont, the entire north.
Yeah.
I'm even
Yeah.
going to give that one little outlier in Maine to blue, even though it's probably not. Maine and Nebraska have that weird.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? With Maine, how do you switch Maine?
Hmm?
It doesn't give you that one extra little dude.
Mm.
I think Maine actually does split. I think Maine goes 3-1, but now it won't let me do it. Oh, split votes. There we go. Oh, I see. Down a little bit lower.
You get
So
it?
Maine. Oh, don't do that.
You want Maine red?
Button. No, I want Maine blue outside of the one district. Maine goes District 1 or 2, whichever one. One of them goes red. Okay. So 3-1 in Maine. Because I'm going to do the same thing in Nebraska for blue. So I think Maine goes 3-1.
Okay.
We'll come back to Pennsylvania. Iowa, red.
Yeah, Iowa's a hard red. Missouri's a hard
Nebraska,
red.
I think Nebraska stays 5-1, 4-1 like that. You've got Colorado as blue. Okay.
I do.
I agree.
I got New Mexico blue.
Colorado. Yeah.
So they got Montana as blue, but I think it's red this election.
I think Montana's red. Yep. Arizona and Nevada are really interesting too.
They are.
Because Nevada has an even higher Latino population than Arizona. But I think there's enough Latino that Yeah, Nevada. Wow, Nevada's been blue for the last 4 elections. Interesting.
Yep.
And Arizona's gone red, blue. I actually think this is the time Nevada switches.
Really?
I think Arizona stays blue, but I think if I remember right, Nevada's been really, really close multiple times. And I think Nevada this time, Nevada goes red by the thinnest of margins. I think that's one that if Trump needs Nevada to win, that's going to be or Harris, that's going to be a late night for both.
Well, it'll go back to Pennsylvania because we didn't call Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I think Pennsylvania is going to take a while too.
Well, no, because that'll still put Trump over. Because right now we're at 247, 272.
And we're assuming these all get called that night, though.
Right.
Because if Pennsylvania is tight, I think, because here's the thing. Like, okay, well, let's not do Pennsylvania. But we both agree. Well, what are you saying on, what is yours on Nevada and Arizona?
I think Nevada and Arizona go blue. I think Arizona's blue because of the abortion. Nevada, the same reason. They just voted to uphold the abortion bill in Nevada, and I think that's a pretty big deal. That's like one of those unspoken issues that's going to be prominent in the election. That's gonna push it blue, I think. But if it goes red, she's in trouble. She absolutely needs it. As the map stands right now, she needs
go back to the map. Come off the historical and go back to the map.
At least as the map stands right now, she needs at least one state, at least one southern state. And we know it ain't Texas and Florida.
So I'm just for the record, I'm not even looking at the totals yet. So I'm not like,
Yeah.
Okay, Washington, Oregon, we both have blue. California, we have blue. Hawaii,
Yep.
we have blue. Alaska, we have red.
Yep.
I think those are right. And so Nevada, I've got Nevada red. You had Nevada blue.
Yeah. But I put it red so we can see what your map looks like.
Okay. And then Pennsylvania. So here's the thing with Pennsylvania that's really wonky. And what you were saying about the black candidates in the South who got 0% of the votes. Obama won a district in Philadelphia in 2012, something like 20,000 votes to 0.
Yeah.
You could have a ballot measure in Pennsylvania that said, do you agree that eating babies' brains should be illegal? And you wouldn't get 20,000 to 0. Because you just simply have people mismark. You'd have some people just click the wrong box. So Philadelphia is an interesting. Really, it's going to be interesting because does Philadelphia look at it and go, okay, we've seen Fetterman, who is actually for the average person who's kind of making some sense, and so we like Fetterman, we like what he's talking about. Harris, she seems like really out there lefty, and we like guys who are a little more like Fetterman, like just tell you what it is. And Trump kind of seems more probably the other way. Fetterman kind of seems more Trumpy now, right? Not Trump like in terms of policy per se,
Mm-hmm.
but Fetterman seems to be the kind of guy who just will say it how it is. I don't know if he's endorsed Harris. If he will, I assume he will. But you have Harris, who hangs her hat on being a former prosecutor, and you see a lot of the police unions. I believe the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Trump this past
Yeah.
week, and I wonder if Philadelphia is one of those cities that Trump gets just enough of people, especially the black community, that are fed up with how things are going on the criminal stuff, that instead of pulling 5%, he ends up pulling 13%.
And that's gonna be the gotcha, man.
Yeah. So that kind of to me is where it's like, this is where the debates are going to come in. How effective is Trump going to be in identifying as Tulsi Gabbard during the debates? If Trump has studied Tulsi Gabbard's playbook, and Harris plays Harris, and I'm sure Harris's prep has also studied what Tulsi Gabbard and ready for, I would assume, would be better prepared than she was during the Tulsi Gabbard debate. But the problem is the record for Harris on some of that, because Harris gets caught in things. She does kind of what Biden does. She kind of does the folksy thing, right?
Mhm.
When I was a little girl, and when I, this and this, and I was, and
Yeah, try to go
if,
to story time with
yeah,
Kamala, yeah.
right. And if Trump is able to pop that bubble, and she says, I was that little girl who was bussed in, and Trump is able to say, well, that's funny because Tulsi Gabbard killed you in the debate in 2020 and proved that you were lying about that. What else are you lying about? Are you going to lie more? How's your collard green recipe? If lots of people called you to go make collard greens in your bathtub too? Look, here's what it comes down to. American people, you know me. I've been the president. I've done what I've said. I haven't accomplished everything I wanted. That happens. But I don't make this stuff up. I've told you, I use the tax code to my advantage. Why? Because I do. And I tried to change it and I got stopped. I'm not going to say, oh, some little girl in, I was this little boy, or I spoke to this little girl in Iowa. All that stuff doesn't matter. You've seen what I do. And I think if Trump does that and he does it in a measured way, I could see Pennsylvania going for him.
It's not enough.
But yeah, looking at I just scrolled down a little bit.
Mhm.
Even if he gets Pennsylvania, or even if she gets Pennsylvania, Trump wins.
Yeah.
So here's what I like. Here's what I want to do. Where are 3 votes that Trump? Because you need 270, right, to win?
Yeah. As it stands right now, Trump is safe without Pennsylvania.
This is where I like to play this game. Okay. Where are 3 votes Trump can lose so we have a tie? Then it goes to the House. And the House, I believe it's as it stands. I don't believe it's the incoming make the votes. Could you imagine a situation? Let's see if we can find 3 votes for Trump to lose. Okay, he loses Maine 2nd District. So he's now down to 271. He loses, well, I don't think he's going to lose Nebraska that much. But where can we trade off a few votes? Wisconsin, Michigan. Oh, do I got it? Wait a minute. Let's see. Wisconsin there. Get back Maine. Oh, I'm close. I've got 272, 266. I run in the same thing. And then I take Arizona and make it red. And I give Nevada back blue.
What do we have?
I'm still +2.
That one red. 46.
Gotta go 2. I gotta find 2 somewhere. Because I just think the mass chaos would be just absolutely hilarious.
I got you. Right there.
Oh, here we go. Okay. I got you. Okay. Whoops. Don't do that. No, North Carolina stays red. And then Maine. We go 1 red for Maine. Did I do it? I did it. Okay, here's the funnest thing in American politics that would ever happen. Nevada goes red, goes to Trump.
Okay.
Arizona goes to Trump.
Okay.
Okay, so we still keep Maine as 3-1.
Okay.
We go, Michigan goes to Harris.
You got Michigan going to Harris?
Yeah, Michigan goes to Harris. Indiana is still to Trump.
Oh, wait, hold on.
That's Illinois.
Yeah, I
I
put
was
wrong.
going to say, man, you're going to, okay.
That Illinois was red, right?
Illinois is blue.
You had them blue? God dang it. Come on.
They are
man.
blue. They will be blue. Okay.
Indiana's
red.
Okay.
Wisconsin goes red.
Red?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Spicy.
And now your upset in the South happens. South Carolina goes blue.
Whoa.
What does that look like? Oh, you've got 270. So I've got 1 somewhere that we're off by 1. Maine still has the 1. Oh, you're missing the 1. Nebraska. One of the districts in Nebraska goes blue.
Blue?
Yep. Just one of them.
Got it. I'm still 1 off. What'd you have? The district in Maine, you had 2, 1, and 1. It was
Maine should be 3-1. 3 blue, 1 red.
Gotcha.
There you go.
There we go.
That's it. That's the there we go. And now you've got a Johnson who is the Speaker of the House trying to rally all the Republicans to vote for Trump. And we all know that now all the Democrats, I think it's pretty clear, all the Democrats would vote for Harris. How many, now at this point, how many of those Republicans are calling Trump and saying, what are you going to give me? I want to be the ambassador to France. I want to be the Treasury Secretary. I want this, I want that, I want the other.
Can you imagine Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene on this phone call?
Oh, they're no, because both of them are going to vote.
This is America's worst nightmare right here. Oh my Lord.
Those two would vote. Now, here's the thing: those two would vote for Trump no matter what. Like,
they're going to vote, but they're going to leverage it as best as they can, though.
But the problem is they have no leverage. Like, you're okay. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're really going to vote for Harris? If you vote for Harris, what do you think happens?
Her district's in trouble, though. She's running against a army colonel, tough dude.
Okay, that's even better. Let's say she loses, and her last act is going, "F you, I'm going to give Trump the win," and she's calling up Trump and saying, "Hey, of course I'm going to vote for you. Hey, can you find a place in your administration for me?" Now, it might not be somebody who's I don't know enough of the House guys that are kind of more moderate. Like I know Manchin types, in the Senate. But is there somebody in the House, 3 or 4 guys that have consistently voted, shall we say, independently, that maybe really legitimately say, "Hey, look, President Trump, former President Trump, I have some real concerns about you. So how do you allay those concerns for me?" And Trump says, "Well, what do you want?" He says, "Well, if I'm in your cabinet, I could help support the 25th Amendment against you because that's how you would do it. You wouldn't say, well, I'll vote for you if you speak." You say, "Look, I'm really concerned. And so if I was in the cabinet and I did feel like you were going overboard, I could help push things to keep you in control. I'm willing to be a person who will tell you like it is, Mr. President, right? But I have to be in that seat to do it." There's ways to do it, but that's where it would be really fun.
So compared to our map, this is the most recent pundit consensus electoral map. They actually
Do they have a no toss up map?
No.
That's too bad. Normally on this type of thing, like 538, it's got a consensus.
It's interesting. They say Georgia's in play, North Carolina, which one you said. I thought maybe South Carolina, but they got South Carolina as a hard red. They got Florida in play. Florida is a soft red, and Texas is soft red.
Doesn't matter. Those are
weird.
Both red.
Yeah, they got Ohio as soft red too, which is weird.
No. But you thought Ohio was going to go blue.
Well, yeah, till I realized, But then you got Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin all in play. Iowa, soft red, but then they got New Mexico, Colorado as soft blues, and then Arizona and Nevada in play, which is what we both talked about. Interesting.
Let me check something real quick. I'm going to go to Real Clear Politics, and I want to see if they have. Normally, they have an election map, and one of the choices is with no toss-ups.
Let's see.
Let me see if I can find. Let me see if they have it. Average electoral map. There it is. Real Clear Politics electoral map with no toss-ups. With no toss-ups right now, they have 273 Harris, 265 Trump.
Really?
Yes. So they've got Arizona red, Nevada blue.
I got it.
They've got Georgia blue.
They got Georgia blue? I got you pulled up right here.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm looking. So Georgia, they've got.
Wow.
So if you click on Georgia, and you'll see what the most recent. They've got the New York Times Siena from August 9th through 14th, and then they have the Bloomberg, the Fox News, and Emerson that all came out at the end of right about the end of August, and then you have the Insider Advantage, which came out at the very end. So their rolling is from July 26th through August 31st. So Trump, look at the spread. 0.1.
Whew.
So, I don't know. I think Georgia. I think during that polling, early on that polling, also during the 23rd to 26th, was right about the time Trump really started talking crap about Kemp.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that affect it? They're like, oh well, but if Trump turns around and he and Kemp are good to go, which now they seem to be, is that going to be the case?
Oh yeah, and then oh man, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Biden barely beat Trump in 20.
Well, and that's where in Georgia,
Eesh.
that's why Trump was pushing so hard for the recount and so this is where, and people will say, "Oh, you're full of crap, O'Neill," and I get it, but this is where the argument of Trump calling electoral and saying, "Hey, don't certify. Like, hold off. Maybe we can. Are you sure? Are you sure we can't find 1,000 more votes?" Now, to me, you can take that two ways. And me, being a chaplain, people are generally pretty decent people, and I look at that a lot more innocently, within the boundaries of it's a political election. Of course, everybody wins. If he's saying, "Are you sure you can't find 1,000 more votes?" That's like, hey, can you like actually like scrub and just make sure there weren't any districts missing? No, and you can say I'm naive, and maybe I am, but I look at that and I think that was I still think it's insane. Like the January 6th people got charged and thrown in jail for decades, for years for some of that stuff. I just think it's insane. But maybe we should save it for next. Well, I don't know how we're going to do next week because we're going to Atlanta to watch the Dodgers beat the Braves. KJ is taking me to the. KJ is following through up on a birthday promise to take me to the Braves game. So
I am, and it's going to be phenomenal.
It will be either way. I'm looking forward to my first visit to that stadium. I was in Old Fulton County.
Yes.
But here's my question, and maybe I don't know if we talk about this, or we ruminate on it, just leave it percolating or what. We've said that, especially Republicans, the reason that the Second Amendment is so important is to protect the American people against a tyrannical government. And that's always been the kind of historical claim, correct? Is that we need our guns because if there is a tyrannical government, and the Constitution says if the government is corrupt and if it loses the population, it is no longer a valid government, right?
Yes.
Basically. Okay. Can you think of any mechanism right now that you and I could, and this is just theoretical, let me put this out there, NSA or FBI, before you come, this is all theoretical. This is just a question. I'm not proposing this.
Please stop listening to our podcast.
Yeah. Two podcasters. Hey, if we wanted to get views, that would be the way to do it. Is to hit the national news. We both got investigated by the FBI for saying that. So my question would be, if you and I actually felt like this government was invalid, it had lost the will of the people, and by this government, it could be the Biden administration, it could be the Trump administration, it could be the Harris administration. 5 years from now. It could be 10 years from now. It could be based in SCOTUS. It could be based in the legislature. Whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I have a meeting of the minds that we come together and we say, you know what? This government is truly corrupt. We have become along the lines of Venezuela, Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, I want to fly that flag and see who salutes. If I raise that flag to see who salutes, how fast am I getting arrested?
Very quickly.
So it's curious that,
Such an
and this is why the freedom of speech stuff to me is so important, like X and Telegram and all these things, and why Facebook, how they manipulate the algorithms and limit and all that. But if I truly believe that the government is corrupt and believe that it has lost the mandate of the people and that it needs to be, I don't want to use the word overthrown, but it needs to be replaced en masse in a non-voting manner, because the system itself of voting is corrupt and such. I just simply don't know how that would be done, because I think that we're at the point, we are much closer to England than we are to Lincoln, let's say. And the reason I say that
we're
is
closer to King George than we are to George Washington.
England, we just saw England go through mass protests because a son of two immigrants. Now I believe he was born in England, but his parents were from Rwanda of all places, who left there to escape genocide and some of those. And then this kid comes out and says there should be a white genocide in England, stabs a dozen people and kills 3 little girls. Now, if I'm a dad and I live in England and I'm like, hey, I have real problems with how this is going and I want to go out and protest it, then to have the police beating me up because I'm trying to protest, or the counter protests of the predominantly Muslims. And you kind of, you see it a little bit here in America. You've seen some of the counter protests, which has died down, the Palestinians, protesters, and then some of the Jewish protesters, counter protesters. But if you had a situation where you were like, this government needs to be replaced, there are too many people in the government itself that would not allow you to have that expression and remain free.
Yes.
I laugh when people say Trump is going to be a dictator. The first thing you would need to be a dictator in America is the backing of the military. The military backs Trump to a degree. The military does not back Trump to a dictatorial degree. That's probably not the right word. But a dictatorship. Right? Dictatorial means something else. Yeah. But the military would not support a Trump coup.
Yes.
It would not support a Trump dictatorship, right?
I don't think it would support any dictatorship. Fair.
Sure. I'm just using Trump as the new, the current. And both you and I know that saying that the military would not support a dictator is not because we think the military is above corruption. I think the military is as there are as many issues in the military as there are in America writ large, including the politicization of everything. I think as the military goes, the country goes, and the military is becoming ridiculously politicized, and therefore, as we continue down that path, as well, America, I think it's more likely again that if a president said, "Hey, I want to become a dictator and I want the military to back me," one, the military would be corrupt enough and degraded enough, but they'd also be inept enough that they wouldn't be able to do it. I don't think you have anybody in a military position that could rally enough. You could take the most popular guy, you could take in the last 10 years, Mattis, and Mattis could say, yes, we need to get behind a Smith dictatorship, whoever that current Mattis is. And you would have enough. First of all, you might have enough generals that get behind you. But you'd have enough. Well, you'd have enough.
Guy.
Well, what I mean is, no matter who it was that was pushing, said yes. Milley comes out and says, yes, we need to absolutely back Harris, and Harris is the new. She is. Forget these 8 years. She's going to be president. We need a third and a fourth, and if Harris can pull off 5, 6, whatever, we're going to do that, and the military is going to follow.
Yeah.
The problem is, even if you had a 90% follow rate by the generals, as you go down the ranks, you'd have less and less and less and less, because you would get down to the captains, and the captains would be like, no, I'm still not corrupted enough. I'm still not political enough. The majors would probably be about 60%. Captains would be like 50-50. And you go down even further. You get below E9. You get below the sergeants major. And you get down to about sergeant first class and down. I think support for dictatorship goes down into maybe the teens, maybe the single digits.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it, and there will be people say, oh, military. No, the military will do whatever they're told. Back when Occupy Wall Street happened in 2010, 2011, I was sergeant first class. I was in the Bay Area. There were rumblings about us going out and doing riot control.
Why?
Potentially, because we were reserves, right? So reserves and National Guard are under, especially National Guard is a little bit different. They don't have posse comitatus where they can't do police action. And even reserves were told, hey, it's possible. And I can tell you, I had conversations with people that don't agree with me politically. And we were talking about some of these things. And the thing that came up was, if we were there, and remember, I'm a conservative, always have been. The people that were doing Occupy were leftist to far leftist to communist. And if we were in line with our riot shields up, and we were armed, and there was a commander, any officer, company commander, captain or above, that said, take out your firearms, ready, aim. I can tell you this right now. He would have never got to fire because my shot would have gone through his head. If he was telling me to fire on American citizens who were actively protesting under the First Amendment, I am more than happy to put my career and my life on the line, going to jail, saying, I did that to protect other American lives and the Constitution. And I think the further down the ranks you go, the more you have that mentality.
We hope.
Well,
we can only hope. I'll put it like that. We can only hope.
I think the biggest threat to that right now, and this maybe is final thoughts, I think the biggest threat to that right now is the, shall we say, lowered intelligence of the military writ large. You got some real dummies in the military. And you've got some dummies who get promoted in the military. And just because you're a dummy, if you say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, to the right people, and don't get in trouble, you know, and then you've got people like me who actually speak their minds and get hung up on by things. And there aren't enough of me's in the army. And I know there'll be people who are like, "Oh, O'Neill, he's only telling his side. I haven't even told my side, right?" But I will tell you this: there are so few people in the military at this point who would be willing to point out to a commander that they have one brown sock on and one white sock on while they're in dress blues. But you would have just as many, if not more, that didn't realize that having one black and one white sock wasn't okay. Hey, dude, you see the commander? You see he got a white sock on.
That is, I don't know, man. We are in interesting times. I don't want to say it's bad. We're in interesting times. We've always been able to course correct over the history of our nation. We've always been kind of able to fix ourselves, right? Get ourselves back on azimuth. And I'm hoping we are able to once again find our true north and get ourselves back on the right path. But my biggest fear, my biggest concern with our nation is it's too cloudy, and we're unable to see the stars, and we can't find our north anymore. If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think and I hope no matter what happens in 2024, I actually believe that a lot of this is done by MAGA. A lot of the cloudiness at its heart is because of MAGA. Good or bad, whether you support MAGA or not. Because the people that love MAGA are blinded by MAGA. And the people that hate MAGA are blinded by MAGA. Okay? Trump derangement syndrome is absolutely real. And Trump cult of personality is absolutely real. So I'm hoping that 2028 has a fresh batch, even if it's Harris, right? Even if it's Harris and she's elected and she is the Democrat who runs and she's I would assume if she wins in 2024, she will be the unless the country truly does go to shit that you can blame on her. I don't see it. I think America is too much the average soldier, which is you've given us this shit show, but we're gonna make it work one way or the other.
Yeah,
I think that's America. So our leaders might suck, but you know what? You didn't give us what we needed. You didn't tell us the orders, but you know what? We went out and we still fought and we still won. Okay. I think that's and 2024. If Harris wins in this election and she just is horrible, and maybe she'll get challenges in 28. I just don't think the Democrats have a great bench, so they'd have to find something.
Not a bench that they want to use.
Yeah, and that's true too. And the Republican bench, I think whatever happens with Trump, if he wins, I just think that when he's done, that cult of personality just won't have the power. And plus, he'll be 83 years old. I hope at that point he truly would just ride off into the sunset.
Such a missed opportunity, man.
I think I'd be real curious if in the alternate universe where Trump in the multiverse where Trump decided, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna just retire in Mar-a-Lago, and I don't need this. Like, yeah, let's just whoever. I'd be really curious because I don't know who the nominee is at that point, and I know lots that the DeSantis people. Oh, it'd be DeSantis.
I don't think he survived.
I don't know. I'd be super duper. It would be so interesting to see who that is, and just as much as if if Joe Biden had,
If he had a primary,
well, what I was going to say is if he'd had a medical condition that necessitated him stepping down a year ago.
I don't think he survives an actual primary. I think he loses.
The machine. Now, look at what the machine did for Harris.
No,
He
no, I'm
survived
saying
because of the machine.
I'm saying like a fair and impartial primary. I think he loses handedly. Joe, we love you, but it is clear that you are incapable of running the country. Pass the torch.
They all knew it, though.
I mean,
Everybody knew it.
yeah, if it was fair, and they gave a shit, excuse my crassness, about the country, they saw this a year and a half ago. Hey,
Okay, so let's say that happens. Now we're well way into the final. Let's say that happens.
these 3-hour episodes, man.
Who is it that comes out of the Democrats on the Democrat side?
I don't know, but what you do is you open it up. I don't think you see a Tim Walz. I don't think he puts his name in the hat. Maybe Bashir from Kentucky, maybe Shapiro from I can see them guys stepping up to the plate. I definitely can see what's the Secretary of Transportation? Buttigieg. I can definitely see him going after it. He looked like his window's getting ready to close. He got maybe 1 or 2 more election cycles before he just gives it up. But
I think Buttigieg is just too. He's too much like who was Scott Walker from.
Yeah. He's like
Scott Walker and turn up now.
Yeah, he's like the national version of Beto. He just won't stop. He just won't stop. Like, stop, dude, stop.
Oh, Stacey Abrams would have thrown in, and she's the same way. She hasn't won anything, but somehow keeps coming
constantly
back.
Yeah, you're just there. I mean, but which is cool. I get it. But what you do is you give those young guys an opportunity, man, and you turn the country over, and that's the problem. They don't want to turn the country over, and
dang boomers.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't think our generation is going to give it over because we're like, man, we waited this long, dude. Let us get some burn with it. The whole time, the millennials and the Zers are like, yo, B, it's us.
You know what's weird about what you just said though?
What?
There is more than a small chance that Gen X does not get a nomination even in 2018.
They don't.
Just get completely passed over.
Because you got Vivek. Vivek is ready. He's not waiting. And there's gonna be more of them.
Vance will be in it.
Yeah, there's gonna be more
especially
of them.
If Trump wins. Especially if Trump wins.
There's gonna be more of them. And you're gonna be sitting there looking like, we can't make these guys wait. They're not waiting.
And honestly, for me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I want if the best person is 35 years old, the bare minimum, I'll vote for whoever it is. That's
I'm okay with it. Yeah, I am perfectly okay with it. Hey man, you got it. Let's go. Drive the car. But say la vie, man. Another fight for another day, I guess, my brother.
Yep.
Have a great week. I will see you in Augusta in a week, and we will go watch us some great baseball.
And we'll do, I think next week we could potentially do a live cast from the stadium, but it'll be like 5 minutes long.
That's it. Like, hey, we're here.
We might have to talk about, or we might pop up. You never know. We might pop up at the end of the week and do a short post debate.
Yeah, a quick. Hey, are we still trying to do a live cast with the debate?
I was about to say we might have to see about that even. So we will send out some warnings. Nobody's watching right now, I'm sure. So it doesn't matter. But
we I don't know how, but we got shadow banned on TikTok. That's why nobody could comment last week. And we couldn't post for a week. I don't know if you noticed or not. But like all our posts just got freed up. So we flooded TikTok. I don't know. We were banned for a week. And then
what did you forward?
I don't know, but all our posts just kind of released like the last 2 or 3 days. So like TikTok just got flooded with like 80 posts in like 3 days from us of reels that were just backed
they
up.
weren't. Oh, not shadow banned. So it got log jammed somehow, or
no, we were banned. So all our posts were just pending until we got cleared.
really?
Yeah, and once they got
Did
cleared,
we get a warning or anything?
Apparently they sent me an email, but it went to my spam folder. So
What did it say?
yeah, I don't know. So that I had to appeal it. So once I appealed them, they all cleared, but people weren't able to comment. I had to go through each post individually and manually turn on comments. So yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, they're freed up now. So you'll see a flood of them. It's like 320 something posts that are just pending. But they're coming.
Not many.
So yeah. But yeah.
We'll end this, and then you can tell me what we got banned for.
Yes. All right. We are outie. Same bat time. Next week we'll be somewhere else, but we'll see you guys. Goodbye.